Lana McCara here, and it is Carb Addict, now Carnivore. And I'm so happy today to welcome No Carb Life, Dave Mack, in the house.
Thank you
Live.
for having me, Lana.
Oh, you're so welcome. Live from Australia. Wow. Yeah, that is so great. So I'm excited for our talk today because I have admired your work for a long time. I just recently got into this. I started the channel, and about 7 days later, my house was hit in the hurricane and my power was knocked out. My house was damaged in the electric line into the house, and it took me a month to get back home. So
Oh no.
I've been out of pocket. My channel's been languishing. It's brand new. It's a baby. And I left, and I've only been home for a week. So I'm really excited to get back going and to talk to you today about carb addiction. And I know some of your story from watching your channel, and I highly recommend everybody go over there and subscribe. It's a great channel. So let's start off with, when did you really start to get a clue that food was a problem, and carbohydrates in particular?
I think I've always kind of subconsciously known that there was a problem. Um, and it's been ever present my whole life. So even when I was in elementary school, I knew there was something wrong because I felt like I don't behave the same way that other people do, that other kids do. I can't just eat that candy and then stop. I can't just eat that one thing and then finish and be satisfied. It's always, I've got to have another one. When I'm eating that one, I'm always thinking about what the next one is, you know? And so I think I've always kind of had at the back of my mind that there was an issue because other people didn't seem to act like that around me. Um, but it wasn't until much later in life where I was faced with a situation with a doctor telling me there's a problem that I actually took it seriously.
Mm. So there was like a moment where you thought, "Oh, I better take note here."
Mm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I saw the doctor just over a year ago now, and the doctor was explaining that I had pre-diabetes, and I was also in a situation where I needed to cut down the alcohol. And spoiler alert, I kind of knew about the alcohol problem. And but I just hadn't done anything about it. But having the doctor say both things to me at the same time, I realized I really needed to do something.
Mm. So that was just a year ago.
Yeah, well, about 16 months ago now.
16
Yeah.
months. Okay, wow. So I didn't realize that it was that soon, that it your change has been fairly recent then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So when you were in that before time, before the doctor, what did food mean to you at that point? What was your relationship with food at that point?
Um, it's a pretty bad relationship. So food was my comfort when I wasn't feeling good. Food was my reward when something good happened. Food was my accompanying thing when I was doing something I enjoyed. It's like food was just, it was just everything, you know. Um, and I think that's I think a lot of it is to do with the food and the addictive nature of a lot of the processed foods that we have in our diet these days. But I think also part of it is my personality.
Mm. Right.
Yeah, and I say that because I can relate, just as I'm talking about it now, I can relate the same feelings that I'm talking about regarding food to tobacco and alcohol as well.
Okay. Okay.
Mm.
I had a situation that was really interesting in March of this year. I've been carnivore since December 28th last year. It's just 9 months, just a little over 9 months now. And in March, I went to it was kind of a personal development weekend. And I had a family situation on my mind that I wanted to work through. Didn't have anything to do with food. I didn't think at the time. Um, but when I got there was a lot of people there who were in Alcoholics Anonymous and that were digging in some pretty deep stuff regarding alcohol. And at the time, it struck me. I mean, I was just overwhelmed and flabbergasted that what they were saying matched a lot of what I was feeling about food.
Mm.
Like it's always in the back of your mind, and you're always thinking about the next whatever you're going to be able to get to. And
Mm.
also, like when I was traveling, if I was flying somewhere or whatever, I was panicked about running out of food, not having what I needed at the right moment. Yeah. So were you planning ahead like that? Were you always thinking about it?
Always, never out of my mind. You know, from the minute I woke up, it was like, what am I having for breakfast? What after breakfast is what's for the next snack? What's for lunch? What's for the snack in the afternoon? What's for dinner? What am I going to eat before I go to bed? It was just this constant feeling of what's next, what's next, what's next.
Hmm.
And yeah, it never ended. And if I thought that something wasn't going to be available, then I would have this kind of feeling of lack, a feeling of emptiness almost like, well, how am I going to cope with this situation? You know, like everything's going to be different about this situation now because I can't relax with that snack or I can't relax with that food, you know?
Right, right. I would always have visions of being in a hotel room with nowhere to get any food and prowling around the room all night because I couldn't get back to
Yeah.
sleep. I had that gnawing,
Mm.
gnawing feeling. That's
Yeah.
awful. Just the thought of it was panicky.
Yeah. It's very similar to like I remember back to, early 2020, after the illness had just become, gone to everyone's kind of consciousness. And, at that time we didn't know, it was very unclear what the situation was. So, we were trying to stay inside a little bit more than we would have been. And, I'm reminded of times like that where I would go to the kitchen. What can I eat? What can I eat? And there was just nothing there. And it was like, but it's such a pain now to go out to buy something, but there's nothing available. And it was just this dilemma. Like I was being pulled in both directions. And yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah, it's a horrible feeling. I would do just about anything to avoid getting into that situation. So, what brought
Mm.
carnivore to your awareness?
So it all started with that doctor's visit about 16 months ago. So I went to the doctor. He told me the news about pre-diabetes. He told me about the problem with drinking, and he prioritized the drinking, that he wanted me to not prioritize it in a good way, prioritize it in like it needs to stop. And he wanted to give me medication to help me stop. And the type of I've never been big about medications. When I was a kid, I was constantly getting hay fever, like injections to control hay fever and stuff like that, and they never worked. And that's just created this skepticism about medication in my mind growing up. And so I was really skeptical about the medications anyway, but also the side effects of the particular drug that he wanted to put me on didn't sound very good. And so I was like thinking there's got to be a way around this. And I said, look, can you give me a few weeks to try and sort this out for myself? And he agreed. And I knew I needed to get self-control to get over the drinking and the food related stuff. So the only thing that I knew that had given me self-control in the past was like a low carb or a keto style diet. And I've been on that kind of way of eating on and off over time. And so I decided, okay, well, I'm just going to try and go keto, and I'll see if I can get enough self-control to stay away from the booze and everything that way. And so from that day, from June, I think it's June 3 last year, I went keto, and I've managed to stay away from the alcohol and the sugar and everything and the processed carbs and whatever since then, and all carbs actually. But the first couple of weeks I was experiencing some gastric issues on keto, and I was desperately trying to find out what this was, because I wanted to stay keto to get the self-control, but I hadn't experienced problems like this before. So I'm searching on Google, YouTube, for what could be the problem. And I happened upon a Ken Berry video where he was talking about issues with having to go to the bathroom more than would be normal, and vegetables, and particular vegetables, and vegetables that I happen to be consuming. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe these are causing my gastric distress, so I'm going to give these up for a while. And the vegetables that I'd been eating were nightshades, like red peppers, yellow peppers, that kind of thing, because I was focused on getting vitamin C in, and I'd heard somewhere that they had a lot of vitamin C in them, so that's why I was eating those ones. And so I cut out the nightshades, well, cut out all vegetables, and never had another problem. And so I just kind of fell into carnivore that way. And so I've been carnivore ever since.
That is so interesting. That's the first time I've heard anyone talk about that. That you started with keto and then just kind of slid into carnivore.
Mm,
Yeah, because you really had a double whammy, where you were trying to stop the food, eating the not so good food, and alcohol at the same time. Which one do you think was the most difficult to, I say
mm.
the word control, I don't like that word, but which one was the most difficult for you to, overcome?
I so I've kind of got two answers to that question. I want to say alcohol, but I actually don't think it was the alcohol. I think it was more the sugar, because um I was never like, I was an alcoholic, but I wasn't an alcoholic to the point of having to drink all the time, like for breakfast and stuff like that. It wasn't at that point.
Mhm.
So um the fact that I could control the alcohol to a degree makes me feel like really sugar or processed food or carbs is what I was more addicted to. What was the bigger issue?
Hmm. So how did you handle the cravings when you had that gnawing feeling? What did you do to get through it?
So I as much as possible I tried to avoid getting the cravings in the first place. So, because like, if you think about it from a um thinking about cravings, like I would class myself, someone with an addictive personality. So I would say literally I'm just, I feel like I'm kind of a weak person as far as like if something's saying, come on, like drink me or eat me, like I'm just like, okay, yeah, sure, no worries, no problem. So I wanted to avoid that feeling of cravings in the first place. And so what I did is, as well as giving myself that bit of self-control with keto, I I also changed my habits and changed the way I did things. So instead of walking past the convenience store to go to work because it was the most direct route, I would take the long way around and avoid the convenience store. And that way, I wasn't put in a position where I was thinking, oh, yeah, I could just go and get that thing of bread, or I could just go and get that chocolate bar or energy bar or whatever it is, or I could just get that beer on the way home. I didn't do that. Um, and of course the cravings were still there, but they were lower because of I wasn't putting myself in the position where I would be confronted with this stuff. And I also had keto helping me out with the self-control, and it kind of I don't it clears your mind somewhat, so you're not kind of feeling like, oh, I've got to have that, got to have that. You can focus on other things. And so the combination of both of those helped me, I think.
So you just changed your habits. And what was the other one, the second one?
So just changed habits, routines, that kind of
Oh,
thing, and also the fact I was on keto,
oh, you're on keto. Right, right, right. So,
or what became carnivore pretty quickly.
right. Um, your family, you have a family that was also doing this or not?
Not,
Not.
yeah. I'm the only one in the family doing it.
So how do you handle that when you see your family eating things that you used to love, or you probably still do love? How do you handle that? And go into the refrigerator and there's stuff in there that is not on the list, right? How do you deal with that?
Well, so right now I don't feel anything anymore. That all those cravings are gone. And I think that's one of the great things about carnivore, is once you get to the point where I think you can pass the craving point, and certainly in my experience, and like after that, maybe first 2 or 3 months, you get to the point where you can eat um, a steak whenever you want to. You don't feel lack anymore, and you just feel this kind of calm, this kind of flat level of energy, which is like, or stable, I should say, not flat. Flat indicates it's maybe low. This stable level of energy that keeps you away from that. But in the first 2 or 3 months, I avoided going out with friends because I knew if I was in a situation where there was alcohol around or eating of cakes or whatever it happens to be, that would be a trigger for me.
Mm.
And with family, I kind of I just I avoided being in a situation where I was preparing food when there was other people around, because when there's other people, family, especially around, they might be tempted to just say, oh, hey, do you want one of these or something? And I just didn't want that temptation. I just, I, as much as possible, I wanted to avoid those situations. So we didn't go out for dinner for a while. We would eat at home. Instead of going to a restaurant, we'd have something from Uber Eats. And then what I would do is then when my wife and my daughter were having something from Uber Eats, I'd just be like, put together some scrambled eggs or something like that, and I'd eat with them.
Mm.
Then after 2 or 3 months, that's passed.
Okay. After 2 or 3 months, you were pretty much acclimated and
Mm,
used to it. Yeah. Yeah, I found too that when after a certain period of time, I didn't even want it anymore. And
mm,
one time when I was at what it was at that event where we had to go to a restaurant to eat lunch, and it was they chose a Mexican restaurant, and the only thing I could find on the menu was this kind of scrambled up eggs and beef with all these vegetables in it, onions and peppers and mushrooms and all that. So I got that, and I was actually able to eat out the meat and the eggs and leave the veg. I didn't even want them. And I think at that point I was 3 months in, even though it was right on my plate. I didn't
mm,
want it. And that's really when I knew that the carnivore diet is so satiating. It is so satisfying. You don't feel this urgency to spread out, and have a lot of variety anymore.
mm.
So, what would you recommend when someone is struggling? Because the channel is really about helping people who struggle and they slip up, or they get a thought in their head and they just have to really fight it not to go down to McDonald's and order fries, something like that. What would you
The
recommend?
the first thing I would say is, we all have um those times where we slip up. And so I would say, if you ever get yourself in a situation where you do slip up and you do give into a craving, don't beat yourself up about it and just get straight back on the wagon. Just go, okay, well, it's done. I made a mistake. It's over. It's finished. I'm just going to continue on. Because what happens is, the more you beat yourself up, the more likely you are to say to yourself, oh well, I messed up. I messed up. I'm useless. I messed up. I'm just gonna drink 2 liters of beer now, or I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna eat the whole cake now, or the whole packet of donuts or something, because that can constantly punching yourself because you made a mistake, it weakens you so that you're more likely to, indulge. So I would say, just go, okay, I made a mistake, back on the horse. But to avoid it in the first place, I honestly, of course, this is what worked for me, but and I don't, I'm only offering the advice that I know has worked for me, as is, you when you have, your whole life is habits, right? Everything you do is habits. You think you wake up, and basically, we wake up in the morning and we're on autopilot pretty much until we have to start making decisions when we get to work, or whatever, you know, we're doing that's going to present us with a kind of a novel problem for the day. And so, because you're on autopilot, if you continue to do the same things as you do every day, you're going to continue to kind of experience the same impulses that you would normally experience. And so, I would say one of the best ways to control your cravings is to give yourself more control by changing the way you do things, like being more conscious about what you're doing. And for me, that was changing habits. And for each person, that might be a little bit different. But for me, it was, choosing that different route to work, where I was actually having to think a lot more about what I was doing because it was the new way to go, or, I had to concentrate more on the time because it was taking longer. And just doing those different things and being more conscious about what you're doing gives you a little bit more control. And you can kind of, I felt like I was able to, push down those cravings a bit more. Anything that's going to give you back more of a sense of ownership of yourself, and like control of your body and control of your impulses, is going to be a good thing.
Let's say someone is in a social setting like at work. Maybe there's a birthday party at work and there's a cake and ice cream and all. There's nothing there. for you to eat. And you are pretty much required to attend. If you don't go, you're going to be seen as rude. How would you prepare yourself mentally, or maybe another way, to get through that 1 hour period when people are probably going to be saying, don't you want cake? You don't have any cake. Get some cake.
I think for me, I've tried so many ways to handle this that I think my patience is worn a bit thin with those kind of situations. And so my strategy for handling it now would be whilst still diplomatic, would be a little bit kind of more um more, I guess, confronting than it would have been previously. So when I first started, I would be like trying to say, "Oh, look, I'm doing a diet at the moment, or I'm like I'm not eating those kind of things at the moment because I'm watching my health, or I'm watching this, or I'm trying to take care of one thing or another." But in those situations, I would feel that you still get pressure from people a little bit, and it's still too easy to give in. Like if you get just getting started. So the way I would handle that now is I would try and say something where people are not going to question you again, you know, and for um for me, the way I've done that, and when I say confronting again, it's not that confronting, it's just like it's less likely to prompt further questions, is like I just blame allergies now.
Ah,
I just say I'm allergic to everything. And I think, and people go, okay, well, it's an allergy now, right? Because people like, you know, if I was to go out to a party and someone said to me, "Would you like a beer?" and I'd say, "No, I'm not drinking that at the moment. I'm an alcoholic and I'm in recovery or whatever," right? No one's going to offer you a beer again, right?
right.
But if you say the same thing about sugar, you say, I'm really taking care of my health now, I can't have any cake or whatever, people will still keep pushing it on you, because people don't realize it's the same kind of thing, and it's triggering the same kind of responses in your body and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I would say I've got allergies. If I was in the position where I could say something like this, I'd be saying, look, again, a confronting thing to get people to stop asking questions. I'd just be saying, it's my time of the month at the moment. I can't do that because bad things are going to happen. And you say that to a guy, and no one's going to ask another question, right? So anything that's going to stop people pushing it.
Yes, yes. Like, I just found out I'm pre-diabetic. I can't have it,
Mm. Yeah.
something like that, if you can get away with that without, telling a straight up lie. I mean, sometimes, I mean, I was raised to always, you tell the truth and you don't ever stretch it. But in a situation where somebody just wants to press and press, and certain personalities are so strong that way, to
Mm.
have something to stop them in their tracks, because what they're doing is a serious offense to your health. They may think it's a joke, but it's not a joke. It's not funny.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found recently I've been using the allergies one a lot more recently. I found that works awesome in restaurants, because often if you say, look, just want the steak, I don't want anything on it, no sauces, all that kind of thing, they'll still be like, oh, well, it looks a bit boring. Let's just put the vegetables on the side, or let's just put the sauce in a cup next to it, or something like that. Say allergies, that's it. They understand, no problem, no worries. You don't want pepper either, no problem at all, right? But if you didn't, so yeah.
Oh, I think that allergy is a great comeback, because no, who's gonna question that? There's
Mm,
no answer that they could have. And I've been very frustrated with restaurants because I'm like, no bread, no vegetables, and well, what about this? And what about that? And what about, and 5 minutes go by. And someone in the comments somewhere said, just let them bring it and don't eat it. And I thought, I'm not tempted. If something's on my plate, I think I will, because why not? Just say
Mm.
no bread, no whatever. And if they bring the veggies, just don't eat them. Nobody's going to say you didn't clean your plate.
True, true.
Not to a grown up, anyway.
Yeah.
I find it very amusing that when my children were small, I was always pressing them to eat their vegetables, and they didn't want to. And now I went out to dinner with my son, and I'm eating no vegetables, and he's eating a salad.
The tables have turned.
we we traded places.
Is he like, hang on, what's going on? Why are you not eating any vegetables?
Yeah, because I was a veggie girl back in the day. Yeah, absolutely. So, let's see, what else can we talk about here? Is there anything else that's coming to your mind? Um, I'm looking through my questions and I think I've covered pretty much everything.
So, you know, I guess one thing that I want to kind of highlight, I always feel it's important to highlight about carnivore, is that everyone always says, "Oh, I could never do that." They're all interested, they're all like, "Oh, what are you doing? You've lost so much weight. You're this, you're that. What are you doing?" And you say, "Okay, well, I only eat meat and eggs." And they say, "Oh, I could never do that." You mean you don't eat candy, you don't eat this, you don't eat that? No, just steak and eggs. And they're like, "Oh, I could never do that." And um I think if you're one of the people, if you happen to be watching this and you're interested, but you've got that feeling that, "Oh, I could never do that." Um, one of the important things is you can feel that way. You can feel like I could never do that. But if you don't ever try it, then you'll never know. And I would say don't try it with a view to committing to carnivore. Um, Try it with a view of just seeing what changes for you, and try it for a month, 2 months, 3 months, something like that. But just put a time limit on it. Just think, I'm just going to try it, and you'll find. And after that period of time, that you're feeling so good that you are not going to want to go back. Um, and most people, again, they're going to start thinking, I could just never do that. I was there myself when I first heard about this kind of 3 or 4 years ago, through Twitter, I think. And I I've known about keto and low carb for years, decades, and I was always down with that way of eating, but never with. I saw carnivore and thought, nah, that's just a bridge too far, until I did it, and then it's like, oh, okay, now I understand why people can stick to this, because you feel so good and it's so easy to eat and you don't feel those cravings, and it's just, yeah, it's amazing. And that's why you see so many people that have done it for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years. Hmm.
That was my experience too. I started carnivore as a 1 month elimination diet to clear my system, to find out why I was having so many stomach aches. I would get stomach aches out of the blue, and I thought I was eating pretty clean, pretty healthy, but I would just get stomach aches and they would last for days. Just an achy feeling in my stomach. And eventually I thought, I'm going to do something. Either I'm going to have to find out what's going on, or I'm going to have to go to the doctor. And I'm also one who does not want to go to the doctor. I've had children with health issues who got no help. And my skepticism is 1,000%, after what they went through. So I thought I'll do it for 1 month, and then I'll start adding one food back at a time and find out where the problem is. But after 2 weeks, I started to realize the changes in me were so great. Didn't have anything to do with stomach aches. Now, my stomach aches went away, but I had had pain in my right knee for years. Pain was gone. I was on my way to the airport. I was going to be flying to Boston from Jacksonville, Florida. And I'm always nervous going to the airport. I'm always thinking, what did I forget? What if this goes wrong? What if there's a traffic jam? All these things going on in my mind. And I was on my way to the airport, and I realized I was perfectly calm. I had no anxiety. And I realized that there's a lot more going on here than just elimination diet to find out about my stomach. And so at that point, I thought, I'm just going to hang on, see what happens. And my life just got better and better and better. And about 3 months in, I said, hey, this is working. Why would I want to do something different? Because it's working so well. Yeah. And
And
weight wasn't really a thing. I needed to lose weight, but I wasn't thinking about weight at that point.
So that's a couple of interesting points you raised there, regarding the elimination and also the weight. So firstly, the weight. A lot of people do this kind of way of eating, in an effort to lose weight. But from all the people I've spoken to that are on this way of eating, um, they all, even if they did start with the intention to lose weight, they all end up saying the weight is just the icing on the cake. Is what words I'm looking for. Like it's just become the icing on the cake. It's everything else that's important. You know, it's the I don't have joint pain anymore. My arthritis is gone. I no longer have the brain fog. I no longer have the anxiety, the depression, these kind of things. Um, and I think you also talked about the elimination side. I think that the fact that this is eliminating almost everything is so powerful, because you become much more in tune with your body and what's what affects your body in different ways. To give you an example, so again, I'm just eating meat and eggs. My and I still drink coffee. Okay. Um, but typically I drink filter coffee. And recently, my local supermarket stopped selling the filter coffee that I like. And because I was about to come to Australia, I didn't bother buying anything new to try it out. So I just went to using the instant coffee that was in the house. And doing that, I realized that I'm sensitive to the instant coffee, because as soon as I started using the instant coffee, I started to get joint pain. And so the elimination part of this is so good, because you can be sensitive to stuff and just go, okay, well, I'm not having that again.
Right, right. It comes up immediately when you alter a little bit and you get a response, you know exactly what happened. You're not trying to figure out from hundreds of options which one, caused this situation, because we get so accustomed to being sick and feeling bad that we forget to even try to explore why. We just accept it. And that is one of the reasons I absolutely love this way of eating, because my body is at peace. And it used to be after supper, I would prowl like a lion through the kitchen, opening every door and the refrigerator multiple times in the evening. What else? What else? What else? Until I finally fell asleep at night. And I don't have that feeling anymore. And I tell you, that is number one in my benefits list, that I can be at peace in my body and no more prowling. It's amazing. I thought I would have to suffer with that all for the rest of my life. I thought I just had to live with it, but I
Mm.
didn't. And
Mm.
this way of eating is why.
Yeah. It's it's uh, I guess you talk about like sickness is, the we just put up with it. I think, yeah, I agree. It's being sick just has just become our baseline,
Yeah.
and then we only so we're constantly in a state of illness, but we don't go to the doctor unless it gets really bad. And and then we go to the doctor and the doctor just gives us medicine to cover it up, and nothing ever improves. We're just gradually getting worse and worse and worse.
Mm-hmm.
And you end up taking more medications to, you know, fix the or hide the symptoms that are caused from the medications you were already taking. And, yeah.
Yeah, and then they pile on the psychological ones, the antidepressants and anti-anxiety on top of that because you're miserable. You're just
Mm.
miserable. And then they want to give you something for your mood instead of finding out why are you miserable.
Yeah. And again, not one doctor will say, okay, well, let's talk about what you're eating. But you take your dog to the vet, and the vet wants to know what your dog's been eating and why your dog's sick.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Um, I was in a class and I can't even remember what the class was, but I remember something that the teacher said that really stuck with me. And I'm talking probably 30 years ago. I heard this statement that they found a solution for diabetes in pigs back in the 1960s. They found a cure for diabetes in pigs in the 1960s. And
Mm.
he said, why do you think they didn't bring that solution over to people? Because diabetes is rampant through the population. It's because a sick pig is worthless. It doesn't make money. But a sick human makes them money. So you want
Mm.
the animals healthy and the people sick. And I think that's what we're seeing, in our society today. So I first saw the carnivore diet when I watch homesteading people on YouTube. And this one guy, Justin Rhodes, he had some kind of arthritis spring up from some bacteria that he got, into on the farm. And he was doing the carnivore diet to take down the inflammation. And I thought, what an extreme, what what an extreme, way out there kind of thing. Who would ever just eat meat? Um, but now I found out that this is not deprivation. This is
Mm.
actually satisfying wellness. It's not deprivation at all. And that shift in mindset, because when you go on a diet, you're depriving yourself of good things that you like. But this is a lifestyle that is so rewarding and so satisfying and so calming
Mm.
that I can definitely see myself continuing on this way for years to come.
Yeah, the same. I can't see myself ever changing. If I was ever changing, if I ever changed my way of eating and went back to what the way I was eating before, it would just be a complete mistake. Something went wrong. There was a blip somewhere, and something went wrong, because other there's just no reason to go back.
Right. One of the advantages I find is grocery shopping is so easy, so simple. I just load up my cart with whatever meat looks good and get some eggs.
Yeah. Never have to go into the middle of, I go into the middle of the supermarket to get my coffee. That's it.
Yeah.
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 Or when I'm shopping for family. But for myself, I'm like the meat section and the eggs. That's it. And then in and out.
Yeah.
I get some strange looks from the people at the checkout, like, what's this guy's in here again buying eggs? But yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. Dave, thank you so much for being with me tonight. I just really appreciate your time and actually being traveling and taking time. Thank you. Thank you for that.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me on, Lana. It's been a pleasure.
Yes. Safe travels.
Cheers.